All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We're very excited to be here today. We're speaking. My name is Stacey Fitzicrest, and I'm with Waubetek Business Development Corporation, and I'm the mining strategy manager. Today, we have our general manager from Waubetek Business Development Corporation here to speak about one of the initiatives that we're very excited about. And we'll also be speaking about this later on in the week. We have Dom Adabi Leach, who's our general manager, who just flew in. And she works here, and she's also very excited to be here as well. So this is Dom Adabi Leach.
Miigwech Stacy. Ani bonjour. Vidavin dishna kas. Chijak dodem. Vigwaskanaga ina antek omnakaning ina vidom nising donjapa. Good afternoon, everyone. We're speaking during lunch hour, which is kind of a bit of an issue, but I think we'll, if you can hear up, that would be, listen up to what we have to share today, that would be really great. I've been with the Waubetek Business Development Corporation for the past 32 years. This is, I think, my 5th time at PDAC, and I'm pretty honored to be here. I wanted to talk about Indigenous peoples and mining. Over the last 20 years, the relationship between our people has become really significant and key in the mining industry. As a matter of fact, I would say that our relationship with the resource development industry has grown in a more positive way than sometimes our relationships with government. So we have an estimated 455 agreements across the country between mining companies and Indigenous communities between over the first 17 years of the years in the 2000s. These agreements have commitments such as education, training, jobs, business development, financial payments to help ensure mining projects bring long-lasting benefits to Indigenous communities and surrounding communities as well. So on this map, which isn't showing up right now. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it is. You'll see where the active agreements are located. Pretty much covering, these are the ones in Ontario here. So Ontario is a huge area, and that's where Waubetek is located. We are primarily located in Northeast Ontario, but we work with in partnership with our fellow organizations throughout Northern Ontario. Of course, you'll find as you listen to various presentations throughout PDAC that you'll see that 7.5% of the total mining labor force is comprised of Indigenous peoples, even though we account for just about 5% of the population in Canada. I think that's an important fact to look at. In Ontario, Indigenous employment accounts for about 11.2% of total mining jobs in Ontario. And mining companies contributed more than $90 million to Indigenous governments and communities in Ontario again. I mentioned that. These are stats from the Ontario Mining Association. The modern reality is that some Indigenous communities have become skilled at using their leverage to represent their interest in mineral development. But not all communities have access to the same resources. And as you know, you'll see a cluster of Indigenous communities involved in mining around the primary mining areas of Ontario and Canada. But Indigenous people have been very insistent about mineral development and that it be done in a good way, and that's sustainably. That respects and includes true participation in partnerships, but also takes into consideration natural resources, such as the land, the water, the animals. This is really, really important. This is why we believe that our voices necessary in this industry, and that an Indigenous lens is helpful to how we develop the industry going forward. We know that there are ways to do resource development sustainably, and we'd like to be able to help steer in this direction. So with that in mind, the First Nation communities in Northeast Ontario who Waubetek works with asked to develop a mining strategy for our region. So together we had community engagements, and we put together a mining strategy which engaged all of our people interested in the industry, our community leaders, our economic development officers, our lands officers, our Indigenous businesses, all got involved in this developing a mining strategy. This strategy was completed in 2015, so it's been 5 years now. So one of the things that we said is that, to me, I want to just liken this to another industry sector, which is tourism. Before, Indigenous people didn't like tourism because we felt that it was exploiting our people, and we were outside the circle. And that's how we felt with mining, that we weren't in the circle. So this is why we looked at how we could become involved and help to maybe guide the industry, help to become engaged in the industry, and to look at benefits, economic benefits for our communities and our people. So the mining strategy vision, if you look at that, and we have the 4 quadrants here, similar to our medicine wheel, but we always start in the east. It's sort of like that orange color. So one of the things that we needed to start with was building Aboriginal mining industry knowledge, awareness, and capacity. And that's kind of a stage that we've been working on in the past, since the strategy came about 5 years ago. And now when you look at the southern part of the quadrant, you'll see mining industry relations. We've also been working on that, but now we're developing some really key partnerships. And then when you look at the west part of the quadrant, skilled Aboriginal workforce is a primary part of what we're doing too. And I'm going to maybe talk a little bit about each of these, but of course, at the northern part of the quadrant, it's Aboriginal businesses and partnerships. And I just want to let you know that the Waubetek Business Development Corporation's key work is assisting Indigenous businesses. Our little organization, which started, as I mentioned, 32 years ago, has invested over $100 million in Indigenous businesses and economic projects in Northeast Ontario. That's $100 million, and the loans that we've provided have been repaid at a rate better than what the conventional lending institutions experience. So that shows that our people aren't a high risk as some would like to think. Our people are very dedicated to repaying their loans and making sure that their businesses succeed. They'll do everything they can to make their businesses succeed. They work hard at it. So in Northeast Ontario alone, we've helped close to 3,500 businesses. So those businesses are ready to get involved in this industry and become suppliers as well. So all of these quadrants will bring together opportunities for our people, and that's what our communities believe, and that's part of our vision and our strategy. So one of the areas in building capacity amongst our people is the Center of Excellence for Indigenous Minerals Development. And we're at booth 87 when you want to find out a little bit more, but I want to just tell you a little bit about it. The Center of Excellence is there to help build capacity amongst Indigenous people with respect to the mining industry. But it's also there to help industry, because oftentimes industry doesn't know who to consult with, where to turn, what are the leading practices. Sometimes government doesn't know. And so this center is going to be a source of information for people wanting to work together in this industry. And the the thing about this center is it's going to be located at Laurentian University. So we're working with Laurentian University, but also, and we'll be signing an agreement later on during PDAC on Tuesday. So we're pretty excited about that, to be able to sign an agreement with Laurentian University. So we'll be using that. Thank you. So we'll be using their facilities. We have an office. The center will be located on the Laurentian University site, but we'll have access to their students for research, because we want to do research, but we also want to do case studies on leading practices around the world on Indigenous people working with mining companies working with Indigenous people. What are the leading practices? It'll save a lot of companies a lot of problems in trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes when we are able to share this information. There'll be tools and templates available as well at the Center of Excellence. So the center is going to be this clearinghouse of information with a focus on the research and on, well, as I just mentioned, even legislation with respect to working with Indigenous people. Because there's laws in Canada that people don't understand about Indigenous title and the legal requirement to consult and accommodate Indigenous peoples. So this clearinghouse would be able to provide some clarity in that kind of information. So much of this information will be used to standardize frameworks and working together as they engage and partner in the industry. And I always like to tell this little story about my community where I'm from, Waubetek First Nation in Northern Ontario, where we would have companies come in and want to consult, and they would bring to our boardroom table, our council table, and I served on council, they would bring to our council table all these technical binders that thick all over our table. And that was supposed to be consultation. We had nobody who had the capacity, even though I have a university education, I couldn't read the technical data. So we had no place to turn, no idea what to do next. So a center of excellence would be a place where our community now can call and get some advice on the companies who've come to consult with us about maybe standardizing a process and letters. What are the leading protocols communities might have in working with mining companies? Those are the kinds of things that my community would benefit from personally, and I think those companies coming in would also learn ways and how to approach us to work with us in a better way as well. So I think this kind of facilitates building of relationships overall. So one of the other things that we're looking at is providing Mining 101 to our communities, because oftentimes there's a disconnect on what mineral development is all about. We know that there's minerals that we need for medical equipment, for MRI machines, for computers, cell phones, vehicles, but what are those minerals all about? I think Mining 101 will help us to make the link to how important the mineral resource industry is. And I think that that's something that we could all benefit from, is that understanding. So I've mentioned the information that'll be available through Laurentian, and that we already have, I'll be talking about some of the research that we might be taking on as we go, we are going to be taking on as we go forward. I've already mentioned the 4 main users of the center being our people, post-secondary education institutions, and by the way, the center now is being considered as a resource globally. It's not just for Northeast Ontario anymore. There's groups across Canada wanting to use the Center of Excellence. there's groups in other countries that want to use the Center of Excellence. So this is taking on a huge role, I think, worldwide. And as a matter of fact, we have a university in Australia that wants to be a partner as well with the Center of Excellence. Of course, mining companies, as I've mentioned, will be a user of this center, as well as the government and public sector for key information. We're really pleased since last year now to announce that we have key funding through FedNor and Natural Resources Canada, the federal government. Combined has contributed $1.8 million to the Center of Excellence. And we're really honored as well to say that global mining giant Rio Tinto has committed $1 million as well for our first 5 years of operation. So we're really, really excited about that. They've been such a great partner to work with. We are looking for additional partners on this as well. And actually we'll be meeting this week with a few people who've expressed an interest. But anyone who might be interested in helping us out in any way, we'd be happy to speak with you. And as I mentioned, we'll be signing our agreement with Laurentian University this Tuesday here. So we've already found that since we've announced this and started working on this, I've heard that there's even more youth and students looking at taking the mining-related studies at Laurentian University. They want to be in on some of this research, and I think I've definitely been coaching a lot of our young people. I'm looking forward to them being part of this as well. But all of the mining-related programs at Laurentian will be an important partner with us, and the Goodman School of Mines as well as Merarco. The key benefits of this location, of course, is we're in the hub of mining in Northeast Ontario, and we'll be able to work closely with with the mining companies and the mining support organizations that are there, including the Center of Excellence for Mining Innovation. Of course, we know that there's still issues and challenges, but oftentimes by working on communication, dialogue, I think that those will help us to look at ways to collaborate. Part of our strategy that I spoke about includes having roundtable discussions with the industry, so that people just get to know each other, get to know what it's all about, and start to, I think when you start making friendships, that you start to build that understanding, and that's what we want to work towards. You know, we know that there's issues in Canada today that are affecting the energy sector and with respect to Indigenous people. And I think that not everyone understands that there's the core issues around that. It's not just about a pipeline or anything like that. There's a lot of information that our people need to understand, and so something like a center like this, I think, will help people understand better what those core issues are and what some of the legal frameworks are around Canada today in terms of Aboriginal title and Aboriginal rights. But I think all we need to do is build that understanding together, and so we intend to act not necessarily in terms of energy right now. Our focus is mineral development, but I think that what we're doing in mineral development will be leading practice that can be applied to other areas as well going forward. We're hoping that that's the case. So my colleague Stacy Kress is here. He's our full-time guy working on implementing our mining strategy. I also have my colleague Sam Manitowabi here. He's one of Waubetek's business development officers, and he works with our business people. I wanted to talk a little bit about the research that we're looking at. For example, just to give you an idea, one of the projects that we've identified right away was how Rio Tinto has worked with an Indigenous community in Northern Australia. And what they did was they actually handed over their rights to a mine to the Indigenous community who mine bauxite, which is used in steel. Well, you probably all know that better than I do. But in terms of what bauxite is used for. But it's really amazing to see how that project has developed. I always like to tell this story because I was there in Northern Australia and saw this community firsthand. And it's really amazing how they've done sustainable development in their community. So they have what looks to me like a big red gravel pit, but it's the small red stones that's used with bauxite. But what they're doing is they extract that mineral, they're reclaiming the land. In the meantime, they had built a greenhouse that they're replanting important trees, food, and just plants, flowers, vegetables, everything there as they reclaim the land. And they have a specialized tree that grows there, so that's one of the things that they wanted to make sure that they grow. And they also have a company that they have a sawmill, and they grow this really rich, stronger than mahogany wood that looks like mahogany there. And that's what they're mainly reclaiming that land for, is to grow that specialized tree. So they have a sawmill and they have a furniture making company. With that wood, they make flooring. The other thing that they do is now they have a housing construction company. So they build the houses in their community, and with some of the aggregates that they have left over from the bauxite mine, they've been using to build blocks for their housing. So they have a furniture store, they have a grocery store, they have their greenhouse, they have their sawmill, they have their construction company, heavy equipment company. But all of this all interrelates. Everything interrelates with what they're doing, and all of the money that they're making and selling the bauxite directly to Rio Tinto has been used to reinvest in the community and all of these things that they're doing in the training programs. Their community's social issues have been minimized so much by doing all of this and having the community involved, and that's really what sustainable development is all about. So there's still jobs for everyone in that area, but I think it's important to note that if mining can be done in concert with Indigenous people and our worldview, with our perspectives on sustainable development, I think it can be done in a good way, and reclamation can take place as you're going along, not at the end of a big project. And then as you're doing reclamation as you go along, it can still benefit the community. So that's one of the case studies that we're really looking forward to having available through the Center of Excellence. We're also looking at leading practices in terms of involving Indigenous women in mining, in terms of there's a lot of Indigenous women who own their own construction companies, heavy equipment companies now. I find that a lot of Indigenous women are going into the trades, and I think there's an opportunity there as well when we talk about sustainable development. So we have a lot of great possibilities, and I think vision for the future. And the center will really be a major help to all of us in working together, all of us, and not just Indigenous people, but as I said, mining companies, mineral development companies, businesses that supply those companies, as well as our government partners. So we look forward to having you learn more about what we're doing, and we're just we just have our offices. We're hoping to have all of our staff on board within by the end of the year, and the government year, I should say, end of March. So we're looking forward to working alongside everybody And I'm so happy to see the familiar faces here, by the way. And I know you've heard me talk about this before, but now it's a reality, and we're really excited about it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those now. But thank you so much for your attention and for your time today. We really, really appreciate it.
Sorry, thanks, Don, for the presentation that you did. And like I said, I know Don just jumped off the plane, and she never ceases to amaze me, the connections and the care that she has with the work that she does. So she's definitely fantastic to work with, and she speaks with such passion, and it's easy to see why. And I think that's one thing, well, that everybody's here is because of the passion that we all have with some of the activities we're invested in, and that's exactly what the Center of Excellence is. It's bringing that passion together, bringing those partnerships together, and we're very excited to be part of it. Of course, we want to thank the Northern Ontario Showcase for allowing us to be here, and all of you being here. Like Don said, we're over at booth number 87. We'll be here all week, and we're in and out of meetings, but we're here.
Invite them all to the Laurentian University signing too.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. On Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we will have a panel with what is now known as SAMHSA, taking place here. We'll have a panel here where we'll be talking about IBA agreements, as well as we'll be formalizing our agreement with Laurentian University, which we're very excited about that 11 o'clock. So we will see you all then. And see you at our booth number 87. Good question.